Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome back to another Market Open. It is December 7th, 2023, 8:45 a.m. and we are here back to open the markets. Thank you all for being here. It's Thursday. We haven't done this in quite a few days, really since I think 2 weeks ago. Put in the comments where you are watching from. We do this once every 2-3 weeks as a reminder for all of us that this is a global community and there's people from all different walks of life. So put in the chat where you are watching from, and then I'm going to read out all the locations in a couple of minutes. We've got a decent amount of headlines today. Cathie Wood ends up buying 1.5 million shares of Palantir, which is quite exciting because honestly, I did not even think for a second when I opened up the ARC email last night that Cathie would be buying Palantir. She's been buying a lot of SoFi, been buying a lot of Robinhood. I was like, you know what? When I saw the 1.2 million in the ARC KK that she added to Palantir, I was like, oh yeah, stock's down 15%. Cathie's bullish on Palantir. She just did a podcast with Shyam Sankar a couple of weeks ago. So it makes sense that she would buy a dip when stocks go down on a dramatically, negative downtrend. She tends to buy if she has conviction. So we got Cathie buying a lot of Palantir. We're going to talk about that. We've got Google officially coming to the party, releasing Gemini, which is their interpretation of what could be a GPT-4 API for developers that could improve products like Bard and essentially make Bard accessible to the entire world via different products that developers make. So that's going to be exciting to talk about. Google up about 2% in the pre-markets. Markets finally excited about Google after a while. And then Robinhood, I ended the stream yesterday. Robinhood was at 1090, 1080, or maybe it broke 11 at the stream. It ended up going to 1150 yesterday. Robinhood starts to spike really well. Down in the pre-markets makes a lot of sense that Robinhood is down because honestly, Robinhood has had a pretty big run. 1116 down 1% in the pre-market. So expected to see that. But the fact that it's above $11 now is the question of, can it sustain this momentum? If it can't sustain this momentum, we're going to go downward. If it can, or even stay flat, then we're in a positive trend. On top of that, Robinhood launched crypto trading in a surprise announcement at about 2 a.m. this morning to the entire EU. So a lot of implications to talk about that, a lot of implications about what that means for the entire crypto markets. We've got a lot to discuss. Thank you all for being here. Let's get started. David, Anthony, Adam, Lewis, Midwest. We got Spain in the house, Bay Ray. We got UK, Richmond, Virginia from Perry. We got Smart Contact from Germany, Netherlands. Chris Patel says he's in bed. He just woke up. Chris Patel tweeted today, should he get a Cybertruck or should he get or should he save for retirement? I think he needs a Cybertruck because when I come to Atlanta, I need to be picked up in a hot ride. So we got to do that. Costa Rica, Boston, Dallas, Richmond, Virginia, Belgium, New York, London, Singapore, Alabama, Copenhagen, Indianapolis, Toronto, Canada, Jim in San Antonio. I love it. Good morning from Australia. We got the Aussies in the house. I love it. Fort Lauderdale, Lincoln, England, another basement, Ireland. This is amazing, Joe. This is just absolutely amazing seeing people from all these different parts of the world. Thank you all for being here today. Malaysia, Northern Ireland, Chicago. Awesome stuff. Thank you all for being here. All right, so let's get started. Let's get started with what we are doing for today on the Market Open. Singapore, Sweden, Russia, Ontario, New York City. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing to see everyone here from different places. Okay, so I think let's get started with Palantir. Let's discuss what's going on in the world of Palantir, and then we'll keep going from there. A lot of macro news as well. We have jobs data. I forgot to mention at the beginning. Some of it slightly bullish, some of it slightly bearish. The expectations came in less than what was expected for jobless claims, which is really good because right now we need good news versus bad news being good news because the unemployment rate is starting to get up there. And if the consumer doesn't have a job, then the consumer can't buy things to make the economy function. So we need that job data to actually get better. So let's start off with Palantir. Cathie Wood buys 1.5 million shares of Palantir yesterday. Here is the screen showing what she bought and why she bought it. I have a couple of reasons for why I think she bought Palantir, and then we'll talk further from there. Also, a small little headline. Amazon will no longer take Venmo as a payment processing feature. Bad news for PayPal. Where's PayPal right now? But also it's like, does that actually, who the hell uses Venmo to pay for anything on Amazon? Yeah, PayPal's down about 1% in the pre-market, but I really didn't think that would even be news because it's Venmo. Like, I don't know anyone who uses Venmo on Amazon, but maybe I'm wrong. All right, so Palantir's down 14% this week, fell 6% today. Palantir actually up 2% in the pre-market, so market actually likes a little bit of what we saw after hours yesterday. ARK Innovation, here we go. 1.2 million shares in RKK. She also bought Trade Desk, 439,000 shares of that. She sold Path, and she's buying Palantir. That Path actually has had a good run up, if I'm not wrong, after their earnings. Yeah, Path was at 14 October 31st. Now is at 25. So obviously makes sense that she's taking some profits there. Coinbase sold another 162,000 shares of Coinbase. Obviously Coinbase up 5x this year. Palantir, 145,000 shares in the ARK FinTech fund. I'm not sure what it has to do with fintech. I'm sure there's obviously some similarities, banking stuff, but like it's in the fintech fund. And then bought another 200,000 shares in the ARK Next Generation Internet Fund, sold Coinbase, sold Path, and sold GBTC in that fund as well. Bought more Trade Decks, Cloudflare, and Toast as well. So why is Cathie buying the dip? I think it's pretty obvious at the end of the day. Palantir is starting to fall down a lot more. I have a very big buy set up at 15 and below. So I nibbled, for those that don't remember, I bought like 70 shares over the past couple of days, 20 shares at the 1830 range and 50 shares at 1744. We're up right now in the pre-markets. I do think that we have a shot to get to that that $15 range. And that's where I'm hedging my bets in terms of making a really big buy. Like I've got the dry capital ready to go, and it's not being allocated to anything else in hopes of the fact that 15 is coming. Do I think we're going to get 15? Honestly, I do. Do I like, could I bet on it happening? I have no clue, because, you never know. The market gets excited and then 17 ends up being the bottom, and then we just rally into the end of the year, or we stay flat into the end of the year. So I think if we have another couple down days, we'll see that. The problem is the S&P itself is not really declining at a level that you would think is bad. I mean, the S&P is up 456 in the pre-market. Holding this 450 range is so incredibly powerful for the S&P 500. And the reason for that is because, remember, the 52-week high is 459. So our ability to stay in this 450 range is actually very, very valuable. Just being able to make sure that we don't fall back into the 440s or 430s on the S&P. Market is excited for the fact that we did rally in the month of November. We haven't necessarily rallied so far massively in December. Certain sectors have rallied, a company like Robinhood, Bitcoin, etc. But sustaining these levels means that the rally wasn't fake. If it's sold off, the market thinks that, this rally was a fun month, but it's not going to continue. The fact that we're sustaining it is actually really good. Palantir rallying 240% year to date at one point. It makes sense that people are taking profits and that it's dipping. The question becomes, how much do people take profits going into the end of the year? Enough for us to get a really, really good price that we want to buy the dip at, which I think would be 15 and below. So we'll see what happens. But if it doesn't happen, then, we are going to have to deal with being in this $17 range. Rivian is something you guys mentioned in the chat. Rivian up 4% on the day. Rivian fell about 25% a couple of weeks ago, a month ago at this point, on that convertible debt offering that they did, which wasn't even that big of a deal, quite frankly, but like shareholders did not like that. So that's what sent it down. Right now, up 4% right now. In the pre-markets as well. So that's the news on Palantir. Cathie's buying. We'll probably see some upside momentum today if the investors get excited that Cathie was buying, but that is kind of the core thing that happened with Palantir. 1.5 million shares, big buy. 18 million bucks she spent, probably closer to 20 million bucks on Palantir yesterday. Google. Let's talk about Google. So we talked about this a little bit more on Finance Junkies last night, but Google Gemini has officially been released, and essentially it's a multimodal AI model that is going to essentially allow developers to be able to build applications and products on top of it that are similar to GPT-4. So for those that don't know what is the sort of moat of GPT-4, it's not the large language model itself, right? The large language model is a commodity. Meta has made large language models. Amazon and Anthropic, they've all made large language models. The moat is in the developer's ability to be able to use that language model as a powering infrastructure to a project you want to build. So if you're building a GPT around helping people write essays and you want them to pay $20 a month and they pay for your service, and then you use a piece of software that allows them to help them write essays if they're a college kid and they have to write a lot of essays, GPT-4's language model powering that entire infrastructure is where OpenAI gets paid. I think this year they're going to do about $500 million in API calls, which is really important because there's going to be a flurry of diverse applications that are going to then be using the platform itself. Google's argument, and what the problem with Google over the past basically 10 months, is they haven't released a competitor in a meaningful way. Bard is not the thing that gets people excited about Google. What gets people excited is them being able to take Bard's technology, which is in this case Gemini, and then be able to transport it into their own applications and then make revenue off those own applications. That creates more economic activity, stimulates different ecosystems within Google, and then Google obviously take a small percentage off of all of that activity, and that leads to Google stock likely going higher because revenues are going to go higher as well. So they released the multimodal language model yesterday, and a lot of people got excited because the sentiment around Google, and I do have a what is it, a $10,000 position in Google. So that is my big tech diversification. I have no diversification in big tech other than Google. The people have been really worried over the past couple of weeks because Microsoft has been doing all this progress. Custom GPTs has come out, and essentially Microsoft has said, we are going to be really challenging for dominance in the AI space. And the problem is, Google's been nowhere to be found. Now Google's like, actually, we were just working on it. Like, we weren't late. We were just working on it. And so now they're like, hey, we're back. Chris in the chat says, Google, my Moogle is up big pre-market. Let's go. Congrats to my Patreon peeps who loaded up them spreads yesterday. Where's Google right now? Let's see. The stock, 136. Wow. It's up 4%. Wow. We haven't seen that in a minute on Google. Google was at 129 a couple days ago, 124. Blake says, is that the reason you want to buy 15? Is that your average, less about valuation? Yeah, Blake, that's more so the reason. It's about average. It's, look, is the valuation that different between 15 and 17? Not really, but I don't want to average up that heavily. So if I could, get in at 15, that's what I care about the most. I also just think 15 is a rather fair price given the lack of growth we're seeing. I think that growth is coming, but I don't want to pay $18, $19 for that growth, right? Again, Palantir is a story of growth. It is not a story that actually has growth. And that's why the market's giving it premium. Once it actually has growth and the story is there, then I think things can get pretty wild, but that is going to take some time to play out. Here's Jason Calacanis, who bought 1,000 shares of Google yesterday, 130 grand. He said Jason Calacanis, significant angel investor in the Silicon Valley tech space. He says, based on today's demo, I'm convinced they will see an explosive growth in queries to their service. This is just search volume, YouTube volume, Gmail volume, etc. He thinks the LLMs that Google is building along with Gemini is going to be so powerful that Google products will become better. And obviously they're going to get more search queries because other people will be using that developer API to build their own products as well. I wouldn't be surprised if the number of query searches went 50x because of their AI offerings. And so he bought 1,000 shares of Google, ironically buying it on Robinhood. I mean, seeing someone casually spend 130 grand on Robinhood is just, it's why I think, again, Robinhood is one of those significant platforms to be able to do trading on. Jason Calacanis was also an angel investor in Robinhood. He met Vlad Tenev at a bar in San Francisco, and Vlad gave him the idea, and he was like, I want to make, trading commission free. And JCal was like, there's no way. How are you like brokerages are a 100-year-old business. How are you going to make it free? And he was like, I'll figure it out. And Jason was like, all right, here's some money, right? So this is why you need the innovation in America where someone is willing to allocate capital to a crazy idea like commission-free trading, which 10 years ago made like that. That's just not how things worked. And then you had Vlad say, I'm going to take on the world. And he did it. And that's why I have so much respect for Vlad as a founder. And I really do believe his company deserves a bit or higher valuation because of everything he's innovated from. We're going to talk about Robinhood in a second, but to conclude on Google, phenomenal progress by these guys. My big tech allocation is Google. I don't understand Microsoft as well enough to invest in them. I understand Google. Like, honestly, and I'm getting to the point where because of how I've started to invest in Robinhood, and Robinhood really has been a transformative thing for me in my investing theses as well as I'm forming them as I get older. If I don't understand it, I'm not investing in it. I understand Robinhood. So when I see a bear case for Robinhood, I can either understand if it's logical or I can be like, oh, that guy's full of shit. He doesn't actually understand it. I can't do that with Microsoft. If you give me a bear case for Microsoft, I might be like, yeah, that's a bear case. I should sell my shares because I don't know how to combat the bear case because I don't understand it. So I can't invest in Microsoft, can't invest in NVIDIA, can't invest in, well, I probably could invest in Amazon because I think I understand it, but I don't think I really understand it. Google, I actually think I get, and it's not because I've done that much research, it's because I use it so often that it's a little bit more of a Peter Lynch-esque form of investment. Same thing with Robinhood. And so as of now, Google is my best big tech allocation. Meta would be the big tech allocation if I had invested in Meta at a cheaper price. But I think Google, from a risk reward perspective, if you look at their price to earnings, is just at a way better value opportunity than Meta. So that's what we've got on Google. Was the Gemini demo real? Some people are claiming it was fake. I saw this as well. I do think the Gemini demo might not have been fully accurate, but I don't think it matters at the end of the day because, like, even if they stitched it together to make it the best, like, it's going to be a big competitor to ChatGPT. So I doubt it. matters too much. What's Cathie's total on Palantir? At this point, I think she has close to 10 million or 11 million shares, and the price average on that has to be around 14, 15. So that's what they have as well. Hey, Amit, I've noticed when the finance junkies buy options, they usually do so fairly far out of the money. Can you explain why you guys prefer that as opposed to in the money calls, just price? I think so. For everyone listening to this, out of the money simply means if I think that Google is going to be $150 in a year or 2 years, then I will make a call that Google will be 150. Right now, Google's at 130. In the money means I buy a 130 call or a 120 call. And if it gets above 130 or 120, which is already the price that Google's at, then I will still make money. The problem here is that the alpha is not as strong versus if you take a bet on it being out of the money. So essentially you're making a bet and you're saying, hey, I think Google will be 150 by 2026. And so I'm going to buy a $150 call. If Google gets to 150 and above, you will make money. Now, if Google even doesn't get to 150, let's say it gets to 145-ish, you still can trade the contract, the option itself, because the options contract can rise in value and you can sell it back to the market and make some money. But the reason people do this is because the premium you pay on an out of the money call is less than a premium you pay in the money call, because if it's in the money, then it's already in the money. You're kind of almost guaranteed to make money as long as it doesn't substantially go down. Not guaranteed, but you know what I mean, right? Like it's in the money, it's much more safer. If it's out of the money, your premium gets lower. And if it's longer in duration, your premium gets higher because you have less risk. So I think what the junkies like to do, all of us included, is we like to go a little bit more out of the money so we have a better risk reward. This is what we've done with PayPal, what we've done with Google, and definitely far out. None of us do the short-term call stuff because we'll pay the premium for the price, and it makes sense because the premium for the premium for the time we're paying offsets the premium, that the lack of money we're paying for it being out of the money. So like we get a better price because it's out of the money, but we get more time. So the premium we're paying for the time kind of compensates for the fact that we're paying less premium for it being out of the money. And then you just have to be right on the thesis of the company and have an understanding of price directionality for it to make sense at the end of the day. So hopefully that answers the question. Okay, Robinhood. Let's talk about Robinhood. Robinhood. 1645. That's not the price of Robinhood. That's the timestamp. Could you imagine 1645? Oh boy. What is exciting about Robinhood? Well, they launched crypto today, and this matters in the context of crypto. So this also bleeds in to the crypto discussions we've been having over the past couple of weeks. Bitcoin right now down a little bit, 1.59%. It hit 45,000 a couple of days ago, 44,000 yesterday, but 43,269, still maintaining that 43,000 level, which is absolutely phenomenal. Bitcoin stocks are down in terms of Coinbase, the miners, all that stuff. So if you bet on the miners, like a day or 2 days ago, you're probably down on those, which is why I definitely did not take a bet on the miners, because they had run up so much. It's also why I like Robinhood, because it has not run up as much as all those companies. I mean, comparison to those companies, it's barely run up. So, but I think it's going to be a major play in the crypto space. And so some of those miners are showing some downside momentum today as Bitcoin falls a little bit. Robinhood, there's what Arnie tweeted. They're in the EU. I woke up at around 6 a.m. and I saw that Arnie got access to EU. Arnie's in Italy. And so he can trade crypto. He can buy crypto, use crypto, do whatever he needs to do to be able to work in the crypto markets. Launching in the EU is really important. The EU has a total population of 750 million people or something. Obviously, that's not the total addressable market for Robinhood, but I'm just saying there's a lot of people there that they can go after. It's number 156 on the Italy App Store, and that's Arnie's App Store he showed me. So, I mean, not the best data point because most people might not care that much, but if you take the entire EU, I would imagine they're getting hundreds of thousands of users right now in this day. In the United States, Robinhood is number 17 in finance, which is also really important because it cracked the top 20 for the App Store. They haven't done this in the past year. They were always stuck in the 20s to 30 range. And the reason I think it's happening is because more investors are downloading the app as a means of trading crypto and looking for the cheapest spread they can get on an individual Bitcoin. And Robinhood is the cheapest, which is why we're seeing Robinhood's acquisition in terms of app downloads start to go higher. And here's kind of the math that proves this. Robinhood has been trying to do a good job communicating that this is happening. They have the lowest cost to trade crypto. So if you try to trade $1,000 of USD to make Bitcoin, you would receive 0.03567 Bitcoin. They take a 0.35% spread. So 35 basis points of a spread on your trade is honestly nothing compared to Coinbase, compared to Binance, compared to all the other exchanges that exist. And so Mizuho Securities put out a price target of Robinhood at $14. JP Morgan actually put out a price target of Robinhood of $23. You know what's so funny about the way the equity markets work? I read an article today that said Robinhood hosted a dinner on Tuesday, which was 2 days ago, for a bunch of Wall Street equity analysts. And it's so crazy to me because it sounds like they're colluding, but it's not colluding, it's legal. But it just reaffirms the argument that all of this stuff around Wall Street is psychology and narrative. Robinhood's hosting a dinner at some fancy restaurant, in the words of Alex Karp, right? All these steak dinners. With all these fancy analysts from these fancy firms. These analysts get to sit back. They don't have to do shit. They just get to listen to Vlad talk all fancy about Robinhood. They ask some questions here or there. They get their dinners paid for. The bill was probably like $15,000. Robinhood, paid for the expensive wine, all this stuff. And then you wake up 2 days later and you get a price target upgrade and you get another price target upgrade. And then the sentiment starts to change. And it's like, these damn analysts have so much control over how the market is interpreting the stock price, because literally they hosted a dinner 2 days ago and now we have price targets at $14 and $23. So the reason for some of the price targets in terms of the actual logic outside of the $15,000 dinner was that Robinhood is starting to diversify, or starting to become an incredibly diverse business. And that is at the behest of Coinbase. Coinbase lower in the pre-market right now. One of the critiques of Coinbase is that it's really expensive to buy and trade crypto if you're doing it. Yes, it's probably the best way to do crypto, but it is expensive at the end of the day. And not only is it expensive, it's not really a diversified business. It's a one-trick pony. If Bitcoin's not up, Coinbase is shit. Like, that's just quite honestly the truth. I know Robinhood is starting to rally because Bitcoin is going higher and the crypto trading volumes are increasing, but they are a diversified business where there's an underlying real part of the business that is starting to grow and expand. And that's why I'm excited for them outside of what's going on with crypto. So as a result of that, a lot of these price targets, and it was trading at cash. At 1.2 weeks ago, they had more cash on their balance sheets than they had in market cap. That risk to reward is just absolutely incredible with everything else going on in the thesis. And so that's how we are getting, Robinhood to get a little higher. Peter Girardi, thank you for the $20 super chat. That is 2 shares of Robinhood at this point. Thank you, Peter Girardi. Really appreciate that. For years, people have tried to use a different search engine than Google, but they adjust the best results, so people stuck using them. What happens now with AI when there are actually options that provide better results? I think the answer here, Peter, is that if you start to use Google a little bit more, maybe they've rolled it out to you, because I know they're doing it out in a variety of tests. There are generative AI answers that are coming up. And so when I see, Google start to give me a generative AI answer, I start to get a better version of understanding the truth. So for example, let me share my screen right here. I'm going to share what I typed in on Google just now. I had to actually press a button saying, give me a generative AI answer. So I didn't do it automatically. Sometimes it does it automatically, but other times you have to press it. So this is the first link it gave me from frontierism.org. I said, is Albert Camus an existentialist? And then I said, give me a generative answer. And then this is the generative answer that I get right here. This is kind of like a ChatGPT answer. In about 3 paragraphs, I get to learn a little bit more about Albert Camus. He's an existentialist, Algerian philosopher. For anyone who's interested, it's his philosophy of absurdism has dramatically influenced the way I conceptualize the nature of existence. But that is where I think Google, that's why JCal bought 1,000 shares yesterday, because he's like, well, if Google can just make the generative AI searches better and they already have distribution, why would I go to something else? Like, Bing has 1 billion visits a month. Google has 88 billion visits a month. YouTube has 34 billion visits a month. Let me say that again. Google and YouTube have 88 billion and 34 billion visits a month. I mean, the level of traffic these platforms encapsulate, and they're introducing all these new AI-enabled features and recommendation engines every single day. It's a moat that I think is hard to deny. And as a power user of the product, obviously being on YouTube every day, it makes me feel like I should own a little bit of the stock. I should own a little bit of the company. $1.4 trillion valuation on Google. 1.64 trillion. PE of 28 compared to PEs of 30, or forward PE of 22. Is that right? Is Google's PE 22 forward? Where's Meta? I think it was 28 a couple of days. I might be getting that wrong. Meta's now at 22 as well because it came down dramatically. Apple's probably still at 31, right? Apple at 29, and then Microsoft, I think, is at 28. Microsoft at 32. So Google and Meta are the cheapest. And Nvidia's at 40, I think. Nvidia's at 37. So from that perspective, I think Google and Meta have a better risk reward here. And that's probably good as well. Chris says that's also how healthcare works in the US. Used to get offers from sales reps, but always turn them down. Yeah, I mean, again, these analysts, they issue these price targets based on how well you woo them sometimes, even if they have a thesis. And I would imagine that would happen in healthcare as well. But regardless, it's the game you have to play. Karp decided to not play that game, which is why Wall Street hates him. They went DPO. That's why they hate them as well. Robinhood's got to play the game. I mean, Vlad's playing the game, and look, he's got to do what he's got to do as CEO. 80% of Robinhood's float is owned by institutional investors. That's something a lot of people don't know. It shocked me to say that or to hear that. Robinhood trading from $7 to $10 over the past 2 years, I think gave it a lot of room to capitulate. Look, I could be wrong on this. I could be dead wrong, but I just don't think the market takes Robinhood back to cash at $8. And the reason I say that is because there's too many catalysts. The cat's out of the bag about what's going to happen in Q4 numbers. Something dramatically would have to happen. By the way, it's snowing now. I'm looking at my window in New Jersey. We're slightly snowing. Something would have to happen in order for Robinhood to go back to trading at cash. I don't see it. I think there's too much momentum now for the street to realize what's going to happen in Q4 with those numbers. November trading volumes up 75% month over month. October trading volumes up 92%. By the way, equities and options were up 11 and 12% year over year or month over month as well, which is good in the month of October. If November was in line, which is what they say on the 8K, if December is just slightly higher, they're going to be gap profitable. They're going to post some really good numbers. They're going to have those MAUs increase. They released the EU trading today, which means they have another 20 something days for those numbers to stack up. I think it'll be okay. I think the Q4 numbers are going to be okay, and I think that's what's going to give them the price boost, along with the fact that if Bitcoin can keep being Bitcoin, if we don't see Bitcoin pull back to like 35, 34K, if Bitcoin stays at just like this 40-ish level throughout the month of December, I think Q4 is not going to be bad for Robinhood. You know, if Bitcoin really crashes, we get a nosedive on Bitcoin, then yeah, I think it might not be the best because that trading volume is probably going to go down. But if it stays where it needs to stay, maybe it's not the worst in the world in the context of Robinhood. So that's the update on Robinhood, Palantir, Google. Let's get to some macro news because we've got jobs. We've got jobs that we've got to talk about. One small report, and then we'll look at a couple clips. By the way, put in the chat if you caught that debate last night. There was an interesting moment between our brown brother Vivek and our brown sister Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is also brown. It was brown on brown killing is what we saw. I mean, Vivek went for her neck, and it was, I mean, I'm not going to show the video, but he basically said she wants to have a war in Ukraine, and she can't name 3 provinces where the soldiers in the in Ukraine are like deployed, or that where we're deploying the weapons to. And she just had a blank face because he looked at her for a second and kind of gave her the nod, like, can you name them? And this is actually a bad debate tactic. In debate, I did debate professionally for 10 years. If you ask a give me an example question and your opponent gives you an example, you're fucked. Because when you ask for an example and they give you an example, what are you going to say? Oh, that's not a good example. It's like, no, you asked for an example. I gave you an example. As long as the example is somewhat decent, you don't really have a comeback because the very nature of the question is, give me one example. And they're like, okay, here's an example. This happened to me in the finals of the Slovenia International Tournament against Denmark. They were like, name me one time where there was a socialist revolution besides the Bolsheviks. And I was like, oh, the Franco-German War, or the France-German War. I forgot what it was, the 7-week war in the 1860s, 1850s. And I said it, and the whole audience started clapping because that was a good example. And I was like, I gotcha, bitch. Like, gotcha. Sucks to be you. And so Nikki didn't have an example. So Vivek took a risk because if she had an example or if she had an answer, he would look dumb. But she didn't have an answer. So that's why it was bad for her. Now, Vivek did go off the rails on some other stuff. So it was an interesting debate. But nonetheless, that's what we had going on last night in the world of politics. Jobless claims came in at 220,000 versus 222,000 expected. So jobless claims being down from what we thought they would be is good. Now, 5 months ago, if we had more jobs than what was expected or it came in line, that would be bad for the stock market because that means inflation would go higher because more jobs in the stock market means more people are spending, means inflation is sticky. Now, the inflation narrative is starting to become dead for what it's worth. And as a result of that, the consumer needs to be strong. If inflation is dead or if inflation is falling off a cliff and the consumer is not strong, that means we could be headed into a point where we're getting into the signs of a recession are becoming very, very clear, and it could potentially be a hard landing. So this jobs report coming in, it's a slight, miss on the expectations, but it was good enough for, I think, the street to become a little bit more excited and, not necessarily feel that the market's in a bad space. I think that's why we've seen the S&P rally as well. On top of that, some more macro stuff. We got the 10-year doing not too bad either. 10-year getting in at 4.146. It is up a little bit, but that 10-year getting higher is it's not necessarily bad because we're already down so much, right? Look at this right here on October 19th, we were at 4.9. So that was where, October 31st is when I think we bottomed in the stock market so far. We'll call it a bottom. October 31st, right around here at 4.87, 4.9. Stocks were down, and a lot of stocks from then, every time I look at their charts, are doing way better than they were back at October 31st. So we are seeing a little bit more of a narrative forming that 10-year going down, global money markets eventually coming into the equity markets potentially leads us to have a broader chance for an end of year real rally. Sashi says Vivek sounded like ChatGPT. I get that criticism. But I think the thing about Vivek is that he has a level of like ballsiness in terms of him asking questions and like going for stuff and like really kind of playing with the audience. And like, he took the Trump playbook. He said, I'm the only one on the stage that can say that you guys are all bought for. I mean, that's what Trump did. And it got a lot of people excited at the end of the day. So Vivek doing that, I think, got people excited. Yes, he sometimes sounds rehearsed, but I think his level of rehearsement only is because he's such a good speaker. So it, like, when you know every word you're going to say and you have no stutters, people think it's kind of like robotic. Whereas he has enough emotion for me to feel like it's not too robotic at the end of the day. Question, Amit, do you think analysts will grill Elon about reservations being canceled on the next earnings call? I think they're going to grill Elon whatever the hell they can grill him on because they're upset about Tesla and they're, they have all their theses about Tesla. Yeah, for sure. They probably grill him about that. I think they're going to grill him about Cybertruck pricing, and they're going to grill him about when it's going to finally, get out into the real world. And so I think they're going to have plenty of things to be scared about. Tesla, I also wanted to talk about them a little bit. We got about 15 minutes to the market open, 242 in the pre-markets, up 1.14%. Workers are still pushing to unionize on Tesla. And so that's another problem that Tesla is dealing with. I don't think it's going to be the biggest problem in the world, but it is something that Tesla is dealing with as well. So let me share that clip. Let's do a little 4-minute segment on Tesla. Now that you brought it up, 700 people. Thank you for being here during the market open. If you're just joining, main headlines: Cathie Wood bought 1.5 million shares of Palantir. Google Gemini is officially released. Google up 4% in the pre-markets. Robinhood down a little bit in the pre-markets, but breaking through that $11 range. And jobless reports or jobless claims came in better than expected, which is why the S&P, the broader market, is happy that we don't have too many people losing their jobs. Here is the problems with Tesla and unionization. Let's take a look at this, and then we'll get back to it.
Elon Musk has been staunchly anti-union, but this latest fight could have big implications. Phil LeBeau, why could this situation blow up?
Well, it could blow up, John, because right now you've got just this one group of mechanics in Sweden who are asking Tesla to recognize their right to organize as a union. They're not even getting to the part where demands are part of what they're asking from Tesla. Tesla's not even acknowledging that at this point. And now you have other labor unions in sympathy with their counterparts in Sweden who are saying, you know what, maybe we won't deliver Tesla models to Sweden that are scheduled for transportation there. That's the development today, that there are Norway transport workers who are saying later this month they may stop transporting Tesla models to Sweden. Now, look, in the whole grand scheme of things, those are two very small markets. They're important markets in Europe, but they're still very small in terms of volume. But this could blow up into a bigger issue, John, because Tesla has the only non-union final assembly plant. It's in Germany, and there's no sense that it's going to organize soon. But if this continues to mushroom and it gets more and more support from other labor unions, you know how this could go.
How does it not go there in Scandinavia?
Well, look, one way is that Tesla could say to the mechanics in Sweden, okay, we recognize your right to organize. Now, Elon Musk has been clear. He does not believe that labor unions are in the best interest of the company, nor in the best interest of some of the workers. He points out that Tesla has given their workers better pay through stock options, et cetera, and that there's no reason to be a part of a union. So let's say they do recognize the mechanics in Sweden. This could all blow over, and that could be the end of it. The flip side of this is that if they don't recognize that the right of that union to organize, what you see in Norway could happen in other countries, and then it starts to spread from there.
How big of a blow would it be if?
Look, it would be tough if Tesla has to unionize in certain parts of the world. I mean, they don't want to unionize in the Nordic countries, even if they have a more socialist way of thinking about work and labor. And look, at the end of the day, I think Elon's not going to have to unionize because he's just going to tell those employees, look, you either get the stock or you get the stupid hourly wage. And I think he will win. He will be able to convince employees that the stock is simply better. It's about convincing, I guess, governments and regulators also as well, that to let them have the autonomy to do what they need to do. But the stock is really the value proposition of Tesla. I mean, to Tesla, for a variety of reasons, you could argue is massively undervalued. If you're looking at the next decade out, those employees getting those stock options, they will be very rich if they pick the stock over the hourly wage. Remember, GM, Ford, they have to do some type of attractive offer to the union, because their stock is like, at the end of the day, it's stuck, right? Like GM's not doing a 5-6x. It's going to give you a nice dividend, and that means people have to make some money in the meantime, which is through hourly wages that are better. Whereas Tesla, there's potential, there's robotics, there's AI, there's there's so much more to that. So I think he'll be successful doing that. It's a question of if they're going to be able to get through the regulators to really, do what they need to do to avoid that. So that's a little bit on Tesla. Tesla's still doing well though. Tesla fell to, it's at 239 right now, or 241 in the pre-market. It was at 233 at one point. It went to 250 during the Cybertruck event. Cybertruck is awesome. A lot of people are looking at it. They're ready to buy it. The demand is the demand is going to be there. They just have to be able to fit up with supply, I think. And so Tesla at 240, I don't think Tesla has a narrative or a catalyst that launches the stock, which is why I think it's kind of just like, the stock is the stock right now. And until that happens, we're not going to likely see anything crazy go on. I did see that China deliveries, I think, were down year over year. If I'm not wrong, someone can correct me in the chat on that. So that is one thing that happened, but that wasn't really that big of news in the context of affecting Tesla. S&P 500 right now, 456. We got Truist up 0.42%, 33.18. SoFi, 803, up 1.77%. Palantir up 1.46%, 1738. Bitcoin, 43,300. Spotify, 195. It hit 200 yesterday. All the Bitcoin stocks are down, so let me pull those up as well. And we'll look at some of these crypto companies that are down today, even though Bitcoin is doing better. It's going to be exciting to see how the market opens up and sort of where they put a lot of these companies as well. Let me share the screen. Okay, so what do we got? What do we got here? Let's pull this up. Let's start off with Coinbase. So we got Coinbase here. Coinbase down 1.79% to 132. Coinbase still up a lot for the year. We got Marathon, which is up like 300 something percent year to date. Now it's at down 3%. We got Riot. What is this company down? I think they were down 4% last time I checked it. Riot is down 2.5%. And then we got Bitfarms. Remember that company that I sold out of? This is down 6%. And then there was another stock that's part of this mix. Hut 8 Mining. These guys are down 1.88% as well. Oh, and CleanSpark. We can't forget about CleanSpark. CleanSpark down about 2.27% as well. There is a lot of open interest on calls for these companies. I looked at some of the volumes on call to put ratio. Also on Robinhood, the put ratio is flat. The call volume is exploding. Like there's like 200,000 calls just for like the next month. So people are getting very, very optimistic for Robinhood in terms of seeing it in the options activity, but there is a lot of excitement there. Robinhood down as well, about 1% in the pre-market. So Bitcoin stocks are down. Look, we expected this. A lot of these crypto stocks have been going to the moon. And so they needed a bit of a breather. One could argue that it was just, they were not going to keep going up, even though Bitcoin is still doing stable. So that's fine. The question simply becomes, how Bitcoin performs over the next couple of weeks and how that influences these stocks in general. Square at $67. I did not even see Square got to $68 last night. This is a big win. I mean, if you copped it at 38, I was not excited about this name at 38. If you got it at 39 or 40 or even 50, I mean, like that's the crazy thing about Coinbase. People have averages at 109 and they're still doing well. And that was after Coinbase 4x'd and people bought it at 109 and they're still up, right? Because now it's at 130. And I think that's a lot of the momentum we saw over the past couple of months in the context of crypto, with Bitcoin doing better. And a lot of these stocks ended up benefiting from that as well. So that's some of the momentum we are seeing here. Finally, a Hut shout out. Yes. Shout out to all the Hut shareholders that own that stock. CleanSpark as well. Yep. CLSK as well. So that's what we're seeing this market. Crypto's stable. Bitcoin stocks are down. Tesla has some unionization fears, not hurting the stock. Macro has been pretty good. That's what we're seeing further momentum on the S&P 500. Robinhood is down a little bit. Google, Gemini's out. And then Cathie Wood buys 1.5 million shares of Palantir. Let's take a look at our girl, Gunjan. Lovely lady that showed up onto my live stream about 2 months ago. Gunjan, if you're watching this, we need you here again. Here's her talking about what is going on with retail and why people are getting excited about the market.
August, even Bitcoin has been on a run up. And when you look under the hood, the options market, particularly in sectors like IWM, the Russell 2000, you're seeing people position for those gains to continue. People are paying up for options that could profit if those groups kept up this unbelievable rally. And it's really a sign of bullishness there.
Just how strong is the options activity on a relative basis compared to what it historically has been or what the average trading volumes have been? How many people are buying so-called call options or bullish bets on that small cap ETF?
It's been tremendous. We saw activity hit an all-time high on Friday. And yesterday, for example, calls activity in TLT, one of the biggest treasury ETFs, also hit one of the highest levels on record.
That means people are betting on small caps. This Russell 2000 call activity, they're transitioning away from the market, the broader market that's rallied, and they're going to sectors that have not done as well, which are small caps. And that's, I think that is a lot of retail as well. And obviously some institutional investors playing this game for these call options.
So there's really been a burst of activity in these sectors. And the IWM trade has really been at the center of this soft landing trade that's dominated markets in the past few weeks. Of course, that is being tested this week.
Well, if you take a look at the reason why there is this buy everything mentality, is there a reason why they're focusing specifically on places like the treasury market and long-term treasuries, right? Because that's what the TLT tracks. And then small cap stocks, they seem like very opposite ends of this kind of market risk spectrum.
That's such a good point. They do seem like opposite ends, but they both come down to this wager that the Fed is going to lower interest rates next year. It's all about real yields declining, and people are expecting that to help treasuries. People are expecting that to help the smallest companies in the market, which, as you know, they tend to be the most leveraged. They're the most sensitive to interest rates and borrowing costs. And they've really gotten crushed over the past year. So I think now people are saying, hey, if yields fall as they have, if the Fed cuts next year, that could give that sector a boost. And people have been trying to catch up there. That sector has underperformed this year, of course, underperforming the Magnificent Seven. And I think people are betting that maybe it can be this big rotation moving forward.
This kind of activity is...
So retail's excited. And not only is retail excited, but the broader market is excited about some of these small caps. We got about 4 minutes to the market open. Thank you, 782 people for being here. Main headlines for the day: Palantir, Cathie Wood bought some shares. Google Gemini is out. Macro is in an interesting spot, but jobless claims came in less than was expected. And as Gunjan is saying, call options on the Russell 2000 ETF for small and mid-cap companies is much higher than it's been in a while. And that's because the broader market rallied 9% in November. And so in December, investors are like, where are they finding the alpha? And they're trying to find the alpha in small caps. Another quick little headline I just wanted to talk about: AMD CEO Lisa Su just disclosed on Bloomberg they expect the AI compute market to reach $400 billion in 2027, which is 3 years from now, given we're ending out 2023, versus $45 billion right now. That's, a 10x from right now. NVIDIA posted about $45 billion of revenue over the last 12 months, and Bloomberg consensus estimates NVIDIA revenue to reach $127 billion in 2027. AMD, Lisa Su, they had a presentation the other day, and I think yesterday, and that's what is getting investors really excited. AMD in the pre-market, let me check that real quick. AMD in the pre-market, I think it's up. Yeah, it's up 3.7%. Investors are excited about them. AMD is at $188 billion market cap. NVIDIA is at $1 trillion. Obviously, NVIDIA is growing more, and they have a broader market share. But AMD is not going anywhere. Lisa Su is an absolute rock star. And I think honestly, if there was a play to make on the semiconductor space, totally need to do way more research on this. But just like as a sort of naive investor towards the space, AMD feels like a more attractive buy than NVIDIA, because even though NVIDIA is great, it's not like AMD is a distant second. AMD is number two, and their valuation, given just where the sector is going and how big the TAM is going to be, is definitely, I think, more attractive than NVIDIA. Again, I'm saying this without having really done due diligence on the numbers. If you look at it at a PE basis, NVIDIA's at 37, AMD's 44. Obviously, NVIDIA's growing more. I mentioned that, so that's why NVIDIA's PE looks better. But you're buying it at 188 billion. Do you think that could get to 600 billion before NVIDIA gets to 6 trillion? So, I don't know. It is complicated to look at, but Lisa Su is very confident in the AI market in general getting bigger. If NVIDIA has any level of demand shortage, or they simply don't have the capacity to provide all the supply, that's where AMD comes in, is able to take advantage of the market. It's really two players that are in this place doing what they need to do. We got some people saying it's a distant second. And look, I haven't done a lot of research on AMD, and I probably should do a lot more if I do get serious about it. So do need to do more. And maybe it is a distant second. But on first look, Lisa Su is a rock star. She understands what the hell she's doing. This market's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I don't think you can necessarily go wrong on either or over the next 10 years. The compute market for data training models, GPUs. This shit is not going anywhere. And it's one of the most exciting markets to be betting on. The question is, are you getting it at a good valuation, or do we see a massive fall and then you have to wait years before it gets back to these levels? When it comes to AMD and NVIDIA, that is a little bit of the scary part when it comes to investing. But I think investors are definitely excited given these PEs are reasonable. And the reason the PEs are reasonable is because the growth is there to be able to justify it. 10 seconds until market open. We got Chris in the chat saying Google's getting about to hit 137. Google Gemini news came out this morning, got investors very, very excited. Let's see what happens. Another day, another chance to be able to once again open the markets. Ladies and gentlemen, 800 people, thank you for being here. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Here we go. Let's get into it. AMD opens up 3.69% higher on the day. Again, they had that presentation yesterday. AMD right now 3.82% down from 160 at their highs, 121 on AMD. CleanSpark is down 4%. Hut 8 Mining is down 4%. Bitfarms is down 6%. Riot is down 4%. Marathon is down 4.5%. Coinbase down 2.3%. All of that because Bitcoin at 42,390. Bitcoin's down a little bit. A lot of those stocks have run up, so we're seeing that go down. Tesla 242, Palantir 732. Robinhood, there's a nasty decline, down 2.65% on the day, falling below $11. The reason we're seeing that decline on Robinhood, oh, actually, there we go, popped right above $11, is because it ran up. Right? Robinhood ran up a lot. And so you're probably seeing there was probably a ton of sell orders that were ready to go through. 1.27 million in volume already for Robinhood. You would imagine that those sell orders hit as soon as the market opened and, the stock came down. Granted, 2% is tough, but Robinhood's up almost, 30% for the month. So even stabilizing at this level to me would be a win as a shareholder, because getting Robinhood to be above that $10 range and capitulate at 11 and then make the next rally to get to 12 and 13 over time, that's probably the way you want this to happen versus it happening all at once. So we'll see what happens to Robinhood, but right now at 11.05, again, I think it's the best reward in the risk reward in the market to me. There's a lot of catalysts going up for it, so we'll see if it gets bought up here as it declines here from a lot of investors that see the potential of it. Snowflake at 184, up 0.2% on the day, 0.12%. Palantir 1727. Fubo down 1%. SoFi 802, up 1.58% on the day. PayPal, Amazon is not accepting Venmo anymore as a method of payment, and that's what's got people upset about PayPal, I guess. I mean, they're upset about PayPal every day. PayPal basically been stuck at $58 for like a month now. But I don't know anyone who uses Venmo for Amazon. Quite frankly, let me know in the chat if you use Venmo for Amazon. So it's not the biggest news in the world for me, but that is a reason why it's down. Nikola is down a little bit. We got Nikola down 18%. I don't know anyone who's invested in Nikola. If you are invested in Nikola, I don't know why, but it's down 18% at this point. A penny stock. Obviously, Trevor Milton, pretty much a fraud. So we are seeing some downside momentum on Nikola, down 18% on the day. NVIDIA is up 458. Amazon is up 146. Google, baby, 138. Look at that. Google's up. The market liked the Gemini news. They like the rollout. Google getting 138, up 5% on the day. It is not easy to bring a stock like Google up 5%. It's a tough thing to do, right? So it's a big company. So Google up 5%. That means the market is absolutely excited about Gemini. They're finally out of the rut they had about thinking Google was not going to be able to compete with Microsoft. They are competing with Microsoft now, showing off their Gemini model. Google is up for the day. Truist up 1.6%, 33.59. Regional banks doing better. Verizon red a little bit, down 0.2%, 38.40. Apple's also red, 194. Wow. Apple is officially above a $3 trillion market cap. When did Apple get to 194? It's not all-time high. No, it is all-time. All-time high is 197. Apple was at 168 a couple weeks ago. So the market's excited for Apple. I think there was a report that came out saying that some of the sales of the iPhones were better than expected, I think like 2 days ago, and that's also what's rallying the stock right now. But 194 on Apple, not bad at all. Officially above a $3 trillion market cap. Adobe at 598, Datadog at 116, NASDAQ 14,271 on the NASDAQ. Top on NASDAQ was 16,000 November 21. So right now 14,271 on NASDAQ. KRE regional banking firm at 47.69, still down a lot for the year. JP Morgan 156, Bank of America 30.59, SMCI 256 as well. Google 136. GameStop had earnings today. GameStop earnings sucked. Therefore, GameStop is down 3%. It was down more. It was down 8% in the pre-markets. Right now, down 3%. So the dip was bought out of the people that were bearish on GameStop. Robinhood recovering a little bit, down only 1% now $11.14. Palantir 1732, up 1% on the day as well. And the story right now, I think, is Google. Google getting that momentum, up 5% on the day. Investors seem to be excited for the fact that Gemini is out and Google has a dog in this race. Google being up 5% on the day. Dr. Field says, not sure if other semiconductor companies are following suit, but AMD is combining the CPU and GPU into an APU. This may be huge. Yeah, I don't know enough about GPUs and CPUs and APUs to be able to say if other semiconductors are doing it, but I do believe that the innovation that AMD is doing with something like a combination of the CPU and GPU, I would imagine that is what some of the stuff they showed off yesterday on that investor day, and that's what's getting investors excited. I never made a play into the semi space because I don't understand it as well as I need to. And I think a lot of people that are hesitant to invest, because the investment thesis is obvious, right? The market is growing absolutely geometrically. And so you want to bet on the monopolies and the real big players in the space. The problem is you need to really know the market. You need to understand what a GPU is. Like if you ask me to explain a GPU, I don't think I could really explain it, in a meaningful way. And so if you don't understand the market, which I definitely don't understand the tech behind the market, it's a little bit harder to explain it. So if I really get to understand it and I want to do the due diligence, then I think I would have to the proper education to make an investment choice. But as of now, that's why I've hesitated from there. But like the fact that the market's growing, it's obvious, and that's why I think Nvidia and AMD are getting the premiums that they're getting, and they're showing the growth that they have to be able to do as well. Amit has a career as an auctioneer. Maybe that's what I'll have to do one day. I could, dude, if I was ever on CNBC one day and I opened the market show or whatever, the guys on CNBC are just boring at the like. One thing I'll give to Kramer is he is excited every day because he just loves what he does. But the other guys like the Becky, Andrew Ross Dorkin, I love them, but they're just like not energetic in the morning. And if it was me, dude, I would be like blowing the speakers off that place. If I was like, we're live from the NASDAQ, ladies and gentlemen, like I would just be going crazy. So if they ever recruit me, that would be me one day. What else do we have here? What else do we have? Amit, you speak like you're in an auction. Okay. Yeah, that is true. Let's take a look, actually get a little coverage. So this is what they released yesterday. Here's Deepwater's Gene Munster explaining why Bard is going to be a monster. He's been bullish on Google for a long time. Was actually coming out with anything when Microsoft was showing their hand. Here's his analysis on what Bard can be.
That I just tried it a half hour ago.
Yeah, it's not noticeably, it's not a wow factor.
The Palestinian conflict. And it came back, it thought for a few seconds, and it came back and it said, this is a very...
Investors, present company included, breathed a sigh of relief today when we saw this demo that Alex is talking about. I believe the demo that was showed is Gemini Ultra, which is kind of the amped up version. The version that's out today that you played around with is Gemini Pro. That's the one, and that is a step that doesn't have that bimodal dynamic that Alex was talking about. And so agree with you, Tyler. This is not where it needs to be. But in terms of this, today was a significant day for Google. They have been largely viewed as 3 steps behind OpenAI and Anthropic. And as, again, I think that what they showed today was remarkable. And I would put this Ultra, again, it's not out yet, but I would put it more advanced than what we have seen with ChatGPT-4, just given the fact that it can do that bimodal nature.
So to Eugene, this is a game changer for Alphabet Google. Potentially.
It's a game changer in this sense, is that there's a debate whether or not Google is able to turn the corner here. There's, I think, a reasonable camp that thinks that search will be everywhere and Google won't be able to create enough power with their AI that is going to attract users. And it's a game changer in the sense that now they've shown some of their muscle. And I think that this is going to, if they do deliver on what they're showing with Ultra, I think it's going to change the game.
I think so as well. And so again, this is the thing that big investors had a big concern about over the past couple of weeks. The main concern was like, okay, so Microsoft's coming out and they're really showing that GPT-4, their ability to do custom GPTs, this whole Sam Altman nonsense happened, but then Satya Nadella even, conquered all the stuff that was going on there. By the way, I have a clip of Dan Ives talking about Microsoft. I want to share that with you guys. This is when I asked him about Microsoft on the show. He was actually very bullish on them. All that stuff that happened still proved to the market that Microsoft can deal with massive issues, in the ecosystem, owning 50% of OpenAI, but they can still innovate, and they are the ones that are leading this entire change. One of the points that Chris brought up last night that was actually really interesting is that Microsoft only owns 50% of OpenAI. Google internally owns 100% of Gemini. Remember, if you look at Microsoft's Copilot products, which is the product they're offering for an additional $30 a month to 430 million enterprise clients, enterprise users that are just, and consumers writ large, that are able to use Microsoft Excel, Word, PowerPoint, now powering it by Copilot, you get 10% of those people to pay $30 a month. That's about $16 billion in more top line revenue over the next couple of years. That is a lot of money comes to the bottom line. That's why Microsoft stock jumped up $80 billion in market cap this year. That is all powered by OpenAI, GPT-4. it's not, Microsoft hasn't made anything to power that stuff. I'm sure they've made some stuff, right? But the far majority of it that they fine-tuned with Azure, which is their cloud computing platform, is GPT-4. Google has developed their own stuff. They've been developing this before GPT-4. GPT-4 using a lot of the products that Google used to be able to make their own stuff, but Google never released it to the public because they were so worried about their search business being commoditized. Now the cat's out of the bag. The search business is commoditized, even though Google is still going to dominate in it. So the question becomes, how do you win in the generative AI markets? And the only way to win in the generative AI markets is to have that type of API that developers can use, because the next wave of applications writ large across society are not just going to be regular apps. They're going to be apps that have some level of AI powering, whether it's a recommendation engine, a search query, or whatever the user may be doing on some of those products. And so that's why we've seen Google really, really get the benefit of everything that is going on in the context of developing Gemini. And that's why the market got excited today. Google now up almost 6% on the day. And Google was down in the 120s when the market felt that they weren't putting up a fight. The narrative seems to have changed. Wow, Google 139, a dollar away from this 140 range as well. Here is what Dan Ives said when he was on my show, and I asked him about Microsoft. He's been very bullish on Microsoft, and here's why he got excited for what Microsoft is doing and his take on the whole OpenAI situation as well. All right, Microsoft. You've been very bullish on this name for a long time. Let me ask you a funny little question here. Do you think in your heart of hearts, like really in the depths of your soul, that Satya Nadella planned this whole OpenAI Sam Altman nonsense to be able to get a board seat on OpenAI? Is there any part of you?
Zero, actually zero. It's not even 1-0. Nadella's sitting there at his desk, gets the call about the 4 board members from the Ringling Brothers Barnum Valley Circus trying to take down $90 billion company, backing the grandmaster chess wizard, legend, top of Mount Everest, Nadella, into a corner. And it just goes back to like Nadella 4 steps ahead. They're at the kids' table playing checkers. He comes in, needed to resolve. Because look, it's like, it speaks to like the concern with like corporate governance, what could happen here. But the last thing that's taken down the lotto ticket of Altman being the golden child and AI are for, board members that are going to ruin this, whether it was a political or
Satya Nadella handled it. That was the point. It's like, even though this OpenAI stuff happened, Satya Nadella was able to handle it, able to come forward, and the market dropped Microsoft a lot after they saw what happened. Satya Nadella handled it. The market got excited. And so now Google has said, you know what? Forget Sam Altman, forget OpenAI. We are here. We're not going anywhere. By the way, Sam Altman, rumors where he was going to go to Google if Microsoft really lost him. So they really had to recover that. But he's back, and they are good to go now. And Google and Microsoft are competing in this race. Let's talk about Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon said yesterday that he would ban Bitcoin if he was the president, and that the government should really get rid of Bitcoin. The logic for why he should get rid of Bitcoin is because, or crypto in general, is because they are smuggling and drug trading and terrorism. So let's just take a look at a little bit of analysis around if he's right or wrong, and we'll talk more about that. This is the guy who's running the biggest bank in the world saying that crypto is trash.
Dimon suggesting to the Senate Banking Committee that cryptocurrencies should be banned. Meanwhile, the price of Bitcoin soaring more than 150% this year, and more recently topping out $44,000. Right now it's about $43,226 on hopes of a future ETF. At least that's part of the calculus. Maybe the calculus being that the Fed is going to lower interest rates and sort of an easy money policy, and what that means. Mike Novogratz is here, Galaxy founder, CEO, and chairman. Let's go straight to the Jamie Dimon of it all. You watched that, you heard him say that, and you thought what to yourself?
He keeps doubling down, and he keeps being wrong. What surprises me is so many of Jamie's clients, right? Some of the wealthiest guys in America, Abby Johnson at Fidelity, Jeff Yass, Stan Druckenmiller, Ray Dalio, big investors all believe that Bitcoin is a store of value. We see it in our client base. Our trading desk has been busy with hedge funds buying. We see it in institutions buying. And so I don't know where Jamie gets off thinking that he's smarter than all those guys. It's the
I
epitome
mean,
of
he's
arrogance.
also spoken out against carried interest, and most of his clients happen to be beneficiaries of
Yeah,
that
but
and
again,
enjoy that and think it's a great idea as well. So,
Yeah, but
you know.
carried interest is kind of tax policy, and I actually kind of agree with Jamie on carried interest. So it's very different on saying what has value, right? I think it's supreme arrogance to think he knows what has value, but all the rest of the people don't.
I agree. And the reason I agree with this profusely is because I have the same supreme ignorance by not allocating any of my portfolio to crypto or Bitcoin, because my argument was that it's not valuable. Who the hell am I to say that? If the market says that, the market says that, right? And for Jamie to say like it's not valuable when obviously people are investing in it, they find some value in it. It's a little bit arrogant to just think you know better than everybody else.
And quite frankly, he's just been proven wrong. Bitcoin has way outperformed JP Morgan stock over 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, you name the period. People around the world believe in this. They believe in the community, the ecosystem. They see governments spending too much money, not just here in the US, but everywhere, and think you're going to debase fiat currency. And so, I mean, the story has kind of already been argued and won. When Larry Fick went on your show and said, I think you're going to see Bitcoin in all portfolios, I think, it was kind of game over.
Well, the game hasn't in some ways begun yet because Larry Fink is not able to even offer Bitcoin yet to his clients for the most part. So
yeah,
let's talk about
soon.
that piece of it. Where do you think the SEC is? How much do you think actually what Jamie Dimon's saying was an effort to stymie or to slow down or to make the SEC rethink wherever it may be if you think that the winds are shifting in your favor, for example?
You know, I was trying to get in his head yesterday about why he's doing this, right? I mean, pandering to Elizabeth Warren maybe so she doesn't come down hard on banks. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of sense. Listen, the SEC is going to approve a Bitcoin
That's actually not a horrible point. I mean, there might be some political reasons that he said this actually.
ETF, and they're going to do it soon. All our indications is that's going to happen. There are 7 or 8 really credible players.
People have been saying that with great certainty now for the last 12 months. And by the way, we're saying that with great certainty 2, 3, 4 years ago.
No, I think things shifted, and you know, they shifted, and we can tell just by our own application with the type questions that come back where you are in that process.
But Mike,
they shifted because they lost a court case.
Let me ask you this, Mike. There are going to be people who are watching us. We're going to say Mike Novogratz is talking his book. He's got so much money invested in this stuff. It's got to work for him. And then there's other people who might say Jamie Dimon's talking his book. I will say I'm deferring. No, I'm not deferring that I'm necessarily agreeing with Jamie Dimon per se, but I don't think that he's talking his book in that I believe that this is a view he has held.
Yeah,
you may believe it's incorrect, but I think it's a genuine view that he has.
Listen, he's been consistently wrong. I like Jamie. I actually want him to run for president. I think he's a very smart guy, but he's been consistently wrong on Bitcoin. He just has. And what he's been wrong about is the appeal continues to show up everywhere. Right? This is one of the only global assets, not just in the US, but in Japan and Korea. Everywhere you see people, you see Bitcoin. And you know, that story, it's a system of narrative, actually, right? It's the social construct between two people who say, I believe this has value, therefore it does. Very similar to gold. And that continues to percolate all over the globe. It's not that complicated, quite frankly.
Well,
right?
But, you know, I want to make I don't know if there's an observation that's going to be interesting to you or not. So Anthony Pompliano, who I know you know well, was on the set earlier this week. And we were talking just about how much of Bitcoin today is owned both internationally, but also who the buyers are today. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting, and I don't want to misspeak about what he said, but that it was a lot of the same buyers, meaning, first of all, 70% of Bitcoin has been held for years now by the same people, and that it's the same people who keep doubling down on it. And I don't know whether you think that's actually a good
I don't think that's
great
true.
Loyalty to this thing, but
Listen,
I don't know if that's actually a good
Anthony.
sign.
I like Anthony, but he doesn't have a big broker dealer that's dealing with lots of clients. We're seeing a diverse client base buy this. If you just look at the public stocks, look at Marathon or MicroStrategy. I mean, Michael Saylor sold $750 million or $650 million of stock last month, and he's selling another $750 to buy Bitcoin, and his stock doesn't go down. There is an unbelievable pent-up demand with U.S. retail equity investors to get exposure to crypto. Marathon, Riot, all those stocks trade amazingly well with large volume. And so I really think there is a much broader base of people that want to own digital assets, that want to own Bitcoin, than just the few, crazy Bitcoiners that maybe Anthony was talking about.
I think he has a point, man. I really do. I mean, we're seeing a lot of these proxy third-order derivative companies get value from Bitcoin or get exposure to Bitcoin because they have some type of effect if Bitcoin does well. And I think that the core argument that I thought was very convincing here, and let me know what you guys think in the chat, is that it is the only global asset in the entire world that people can have access to and purchase. And so, if you have any means of buying crypto or Bitcoin, you can. And I don't even know if that necessarily means Bitcoin is intrinsically valuable. I know a lot of people say Solana is better, Ethereum is better. Solana is a more faster network, and the developers that want to do decentralized finance, which is kind of the whole thesis of around crypto, it's much more easier to do it on other forms of blockchains. There's a rabbit hole of arguments you can get into, but Bitcoin is the granddaddy that allows the crypto ecosystem to continue to grow in value. And if investors want exposure to that, then kind of like, who are we to say they shouldn't have exposure, right? And I know the counter argument is, well, you can be investing in a scam, and if someone's manipulating you to think it's a scam, then there is an ethical conundrum there. The problem is, there's also personal accountability, right? If you invest in Bitcoin at 69,000 in 2021 and you lost money, that's your fault, right? You invested at a period where it was higher. If you invested at $300 in 2013, you deserve the gains because the value of the asset continues to go up as more people buy into the story and the narrative. At the end of the day, even if it doesn't have cash flows, a company like Palantir has free cash flow we can analyze, but there is a narrative around, does Palantir deserve to be $50 billion when they brought in $70 million of profit, which, by the way, that profit came from treasury income? Probably not. But there is a narrative that is forming around the company that gets people excited enough to say, hey, I'm going to take a bet on this company that it's going to go higher from here, because I think not only will they grow, but other investors will get excited about the company. And if, it gets to a point where that excitement doubles or triples my money, then I'll sell. I think it's the exact same thing with Bitcoin. The only difference is the entire world has access to this currency. So I think I think Jamie Dimon's argument that terrorism is funded through Bitcoin and Drime and what is it? And crime and all this stuff, drugs, all that. It's just, that's happening everywhere. Even if Bitcoin's enabling some of that, that doesn't mean the asset is intrinsically bad. I mean, it's just a weak argument in and of itself. It's not a good argument at all. As you can see, Bitcoin market cap right here, $849 billion, up 15% of the past 7 days, down 2% in the past 24 hours, up 0.49% in the past hour. The other thing about, crime and all that stuff is bad people are bad people. They're going to be bad people regardless. Maybe Bitcoin makes it a little bit easier for them to be bad people, but that's not getting rid of the root cause of being bad, right? There's a lot of root causes in society for things that are bad, and crypto is not the reason for accentuating that badness. So from that perspective, I feel like the argument was stale. It was a bit ignorant. For someone who's running the biggest financial institution in the world, he's going to make a crap ton of money off Bitcoin. On top of that, and crypto trading in general, on top of that, JP Morgan is no ethical actor. I mean, the amount of fines JP Morgan has had, the amount of illegal market making they've done. They paid $290 million to settle the Jeffrey Epstein the drama they were in just 7 months ago. I mean, dude, the idea that morality is the argument that these leaders want to go for and pull out the, crime and ethics around Bitcoin, it always confuses me. It really does. So from that perspective, I think Jamie Dimon's wrong on that. But eventually, we will see how it ends up playing out. Someone should tell him what people use US dollars for. Yeah, someone should tell him that. All right, that is it for me for the day, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do that one last look at the equity markets and see what we've got going on here. See how things are doing. S&P is actually doing really well. We're having a green day. I think it's because those jobless claims came in lower than expected. Google up 5%, 138. S&P 500, 456. Not bad, 456.70. We got Nikola down a little bit. AMD 122 up 5% on some good presentations they gave it yesterday. Coinbase up 0.30%. Bitcoin 43,500. Tesla at 238. It was at 241. Now at 238. Palantir 1735 up 1.3% on the day, so not bad. Palantir was at 1707 last night, so nice to see Palantir 1735. Robinhood 1112 staying in that $11 range, which is really, really good for Robinhood. So nice momentum on Robinhood there. SoFi $8, PayPal 58.62, Spotify 194, Microsoft 367 falling below that 370 range, Enphase 108 falling below 110 yesterday. Arc Innovation $48, Nvidia $458, Amazon $145, Meta $322, and we've got Palantir at 1736 up 1.31% on the day. 1734 now up 1.22%. Not bad, not bad, not bad, not bad. Thank you everybody for being here. Inbound says, "Babe, don't leave." I'm sorry, babe. I got some work to get done. What today? Thursday. We're gonna be to Friday soon. It's December 7th. Yeah, almost near the end of the week. Hope everyone's having a good week. Thank you everybody for joining the Market Open as always. It means the absolute world to me. And that's pretty much it for me. Let's do word of the day. I haven't forgot word of the day in like a good month, so I've been pretty good. I remember I used to forget word of the day like every day. And you guys be like, word of the day, and then I forget word of the day. So let's do word of the day. Took some Snap profits, dude. Snap. Congrats to people that got in on Snap at $8. I was gonna do it. You guys remember I said I was gonna do it because I thought the valuation got dumb, but I couldn't form a thesis, and so I didn't do it. But as a trade, it would have done really well. All right, word of the day: Coruscate.
Coruscate. Coruscate.
Coruscate. It's not Coruscate. Coruscate. I don't know how dictionary.com can't keep getting away with this, but it keeps getting away with this. To emit vivid flashes of light. Okay. To sparkle. How do you say this again?
Coruscate.
Coruscate. So it's sparkle. The dewdrops on the grass coruscated in the morning sunlight. The candles seemed to coruscate with every slight movement of thin air. So it's kind of like that twinkle and sparkle you see when you look into your soulmate's eyes. You see the coruscate of their eyes, that little sparkle. So for those that are in love, make sure you go to your partner today and look them in the eye and take one last look at that coruscate to be able to remember why you're in love. Okay, that's it. There's like 5 sounds that aren't even spelled. Like, oh my gosh, that are even spelled out of it. Goodness gracious. All right, that's it from me. Thank you all for joining. Have a great day. Have a great day. If you're gay, have a great gay day as well. Palantir coruscates my eyes as well. That is true. Also, daily Palantir episode today is going to be exciting. There is a Palantir competitor that is replicating word for word and strategy for strategy Palantir's bootcamp go-to-market strategy. It's going to be on daily Palantir episode today. So make sure you guys check that out. Hope you enjoy. Please like, please subscribe. Finance Junkies back at 9 p.m. Hope you all have a great day. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.